There is a hand pump sitting in the corner of my barn. It is painted red. The paint is chipped in 3 places where my son leaned a shovel against it last spring. That pump is bolted to a length of galvanized pipe that goes down 34 feet into the ground, and every morning at 5:30, I walk out there in the dark, and I put my hand on the handle, and I pull water up out of the earth. Cold water, clean water, water that has never seen a meter, never seen a pipe from the road, never cost me 1 penny after the day I put it in. The whole thing cost me $5, not 50, not 500, $5. And I'm going to tell you exactly what those $5 bought. And I'm going to show you how a man in Ohio spent $12,000 last year drilling a well that does less than mine does. I am going to tell you the part that should make you a little angry, because the reason you do not know about this trick is not because it does not work. It is because there is no one left who profits from teaching it to you. My name is Elias Yoder. I am Amish. I farm 47 acres in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and the water that comes out of that red pump has served my family, my animals, and my garden for 19 years. Stay with me. I am going to walk you through this the same way my grandfather walked me through it when I was 11 years old. Let me start with the problem, because most folks do not even understand what they are paying for. When the English want water on their land, they call a well driller. The well driller comes with a truck that costs more than my barn, and he drills a hole 200, 300, sometimes 500 feet down to the bedrock. He puts in a steel casing. He puts in a submersible electric pump. He runs wire. He runs pressure tanks. He sets a control box. And when he is done, the bill is somewhere between $8,000 and $18,000. And the homeowner turns the tap, and clean water comes out, and everyone is happy. Until the power goes out, until the pump burns out, until the pressure tank fails, until the well runs dry in August because it was drilled in a drought year, and no one told the truth about the water table. Then the bill comes again. $2,400 for a new pump, $600 for a new tank, $1,100 to have a man come and pull 300 feet of pipe out of the ground so he can look at what broke. Here is what I want you to sit with. The well driller is not evil. He is doing his job. But his job assumes you need water pushed to a faucet on the 2nd floor of a house with 3 bathrooms, and it assumes you have electricity to push it, and it assumes you have money to fix it when it breaks. Take away any one of those 3 things, and the entire modern well system stops working. The Amish had none of those 3 things. We still do not in most places. And so we never stopped using the older method, the method that came over from Switzerland and southern Germany in the 1700s, the method that built every homestead on this continent before 1890, the method that requires no electricity, no submersible pump, no annual service call, and, if you build it the way I am going to show you, almost no money at all. Now here is the part that should make you uneasy. This knowledge was not lost. It was pushed aside. The well drilling industry in the United States became a professional trade group in 1948. By 1965, most counties had passed permit laws that required a licensed driller for any water source deeper than a certain depth. In many places today, if you dig your own well by hand, you are technically breaking a code, even on your own land. The people who write those codes are the same people who charge $12,000 to drill you a hole. I want you to think about that for a minute. Now, before I go on, I want to be honest about what my $5 setup does and does not do. It does not push water to a second-floor bathroom. It does not run a dishwasher. It does not fill a swimming pool. What it does is deliver clean, cold, drinkable water to a bucket at ground level, all day, every day, as fast as you can move your arm. That is enough for a family. That is enough for a garden. That is enough for chickens, goats, a milk cow, and a wood stove kettle. My grandfather raised 9 children on water pulled by hand. My father raised 7. I have raised 5. Not one of us has ever been thirsty. Not one of us has ever paid a water bill. Not ever. Let me tell you what the $5 actually is, because I know you are waiting for it. The $5 is not the pump. The $5 is not the pipe. The $5 is a specific trick my grandfather learned from an old Swiss man named Jacob Schrock, who came to Lancaster County in 1889. It is a trick that lets you find water, verify water, and tap water on almost any piece of rural land in the eastern half of this country, without a drill rig, without a geologist, and without a permit in most jurisdictions if you keep it shallow. I am going to show you the trick in about 4 minutes. Stay with me, because first you have to understand why it works, or you will do it wrong and waste your weekend. The first thing you have to understand is that most people are looking for water in the wrong place. When the English think about a well, they picture a straw poked straight down into a great underground lake. That is not how groundwater works in most of this country. In the eastern United States, in the Midwest, in most of Appalachia, in the river valleys of Pennsylvania and Ohio and Indiana, the water you want is not 300 feet down. It is 8 to 25 feet down. It is sitting in a layer of gravel, sand, or fractured shale, being fed continuously by rainfall and by the slow horizontal creep of groundwater moving toward the nearest creek. That layer is called the shallow aquifer, and almost every rural property in the eastern half of this country sits on top of one. The well drillers do not want to talk about the shallow aquifer because there is no money in it. A shallow well takes a man with a shovel and a weekend. A deep well takes a truck and a crew and a $12,000 invoice. Which one do you think gets recommended when you call the number in the phone book? Now, here is the trick most folks get wrong. They think finding shallow water requires a witching stick, a dowsing rod, or a $400 ground-penetrating radar rental from the equipment yard in town. It does not. It requires a $5 investment and a walk around your property on a cool morning in early spring. Here is what you buy. You go to the feed store or you go to the hardware store and you buy a 5-foot length of half-inch steel rod. Plain steel. Not stainless, not galvanized. Just cold rolled steel rod, the kind used for concrete rebar tie-ins. It will cost you between $3 and $5, depending on where you live. That is the entire purchase. That is the $5. Now let me tell you what you do with it. This is the part my grandfather taught me on a Saturday morning in April of 1977. I was 11. He handed me the rod and he said, "Walk the fence line. Walk it slow. Push the rod straight down into the soil every 10 paces. Push until it stops or until you have 3 feet in. Pay attention to 2 things. Pay attention to how easy it goes in, and pay attention to what comes up on the rod when you pull it out. Where the rod goes in easy, and where the rod comes up wet, or comes up with dark gray or blue-gray clay clinging to it, that is where the water is close. Where the rod stops after 6 inches on hard yellow clay or brown pan, the water is deep or blocked. This is not magic. This is not witching. This is just a man reading the soil with the cheapest tool ever made. I want you to notice something. A licensed geologist with a truckload of equipment is doing the same thing. He is just charging you $2,800 to do it. The rod in your hand tells you the same story as machine tells him. If you know what wet clay smells like and what saturated sand feels like when it comes up on cold steel, walk your entire property. Mark the spots where the rod goes in soft and comes up wet. You will usually find 3 or 4 such spots. They will almost always be in a line following the low ground, or curving around the base of a slope, or clustered near a place where you already see cattails, willows, or a patch of grass that stays green in August when everything else browns out. That green patch is your water telling you where it lives. Once you have found your spot, and here is where I owe you the honest words about what comes next. The $5 rod finds the water. The $5 rod does not lift the water. To lift the water, you need a well point and a hand pump, and I will not lie to you and tell you those are free. A driven well point costs about $45 at a farm supply store. A cast iron pitcher pump costs between $80 and $140, depending on the maker. 20 feet of 1 1/4 inch galvanized pipe in 5-foot sections with couplings will run you another $60. So the full working system, if you are starting from nothing, is somewhere between $185 and $250. But I want you to compare that to $12,000. And I want you to notice that once it is in, there is nothing to break. No electric motor, no pressure switch, no control board, no annual service. My pump has been on that pipe for 19 years. My father's pump was on his pipe for 51 years before he replaced the leathers, which cost him $4. Here's how you drive the point. You thread the drive point onto the first 5 feet of pipe. You put a drive cap on the top of the pipe to protect the threads. You stand a stepladder over the spot you marked with the rod, and you take a 10-pound sledge and you drive the pipe straight down into the ground. Straight, not angled, straight down, hitting the drive cap square, over and over, adding another section of pipe when the first goes below ground level. In most soft ground, in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, in Indiana, in Kentucky, you will hit water between 12 and 22 feet down. You will know you have hit it because when you pour a cup of water down into the pipe to prime it, the water level does not stay at the top. It falls. That means the point is open into wet ground. Then you thread on the pitcher pump. You prime it once with a quart of water poured into the top. You work the handle. And on the 5th or 6th pull, cold water comes up out of the ground, and it will keep coming as long as your arm is willing to move. That is the whole of it. Now, I want to take a moment because this is the part that matters. I am not telling you to drink this water without testing it. Please, I will not oversell it. Honest is better than impressive. Take a jar of the first gallon to your county extension office, or order a $30 mail-in test from a state-certified lab and check for coliform bacteria, nitrates, and, if you are near old farmland or industry, check for lead and arsenic. Most shallow wells in rural country test clean. Some do not. You have to know. Do not skip this step because I made it sound easy. My grandfather tested his water. My father tested his water. I test mine every 2 years. And there are places where this will not work. If you live on solid rock, if you live in the high desert, if you live where the water table is 180 feet down, this trick will not save you. I am talking to the man or woman who lives on ordinary rural land in the eastern half of this country, where the water is close And the soil will take a driven point. That is millions of properties. That is most of you watching. Now here is the part that should make you angry. The reason you did not know about this is not because it is hidden. It is written down. It has been written down since 1826, when Ezekiel Reed patented the driven well point in Massachusetts. The plans have been in the back of every old farm almanac for 200 years. The USGS has published maps of shallow aquifers for every county in this country, and they are free to download. Your county extension office has soil surveys that will tell you almost to the foot how deep the water sits under your land. None of this is a secret. You were just never told. You were never told because there is an entire industry built on the assumption that water is something you buy, either from the municipal utility that charges you $70 a month, or from the drilling company that charges you $12,000 up front, or from the bottled water company that charges you $1.89 for something that fell out of the sky for free. Every one of those industries has a marketing budget. The 5-foot steel rod does not have a marketing budget. The pitcher pump does not have a lobbyist. The knowledge that a man can find and tap his own water in a weekend for less than the cost of a tank of gas has no one selling it to you on television. I want you to think about what that means. I want you to think about how much of what you pay for every month is a thing your great-grandfather did for himself, without a bill, without a subscription, without asking anyone's permission. Water, heat, light, food, soap, medicine, all of it once was something a family did with their own hands on their own land. Now it is 12 monthly invoices and a debit from your checking account you do not even read anymore. My bishop, an old man named Amos Byler, who passed in 2019, used to say a thing at meeting that I have never forgotten. He said, "A man who cannot bring water up out of his own ground is not a poor man because he lacks money. He is a poor man because he has forgotten he is standing on top of a river." I was 34 years old the first time I heard him say it, and I did not understand it until I was 40. I understand it now. The water is there. It has always been there. The only thing between you and it is a $5 rod and a Saturday morning. Here is what I want you to do this weekend. I do not want you to drive the well yet. I want you to do the first step only. I want you to go to the hardware store, and I want you to buy the 5-foot length of 1/2-inch steel rod. Do not overthink it. Any plain steel rod will do. Bring it home. Wait for a cool morning after a rain, because wet ground reads clearer than dry ground. Walk your property. Push the rod down every 10 paces along your low ground and along your fence lines. Pull it up. Look at what comes up on the steel. Smell the clay. Feel whether the tip is cool or warm. Mark the wet spots with a stake or a flag. Do only that. Do not order a pump yet. Do not order a well point yet. First, learn to read your own ground with the cheapest tool a man ever held. Once you have found 3 or 4 wet spots, come back and watch the next video because I am going to walk you through the driving of the point, the priming of the pump, the setting of the leathers, and the small tricks my grandfather taught me for making a shallow well run clear instead of muddy. Tell me in the comments below what state you are in and what your land looks like, whether it is river bottom or hillside or old pasture, and I will tell you honestly whether the shallow aquifer method is likely to work where you live. I read every single one. I do not always answer within the day because I am in the fields most daylight hours, but I get to every comment by the end of the week. Next time, I'm going to show you the exact 3-step process for driving the point without splitting the pipe, and I'm going to show you a trick, an old Ohio Amish trick from a man named Menno Hirschberger in Holmes County, for making even a marginal well produce twice the water by packing gravel around the point before you drive the last 2 feet. That trick alone has saved more wells than any single technique I know. And no drilling company will ever teach it to you because it makes their expensive equipment look foolish. Until then, I want you to walk out onto your land this weekend with that steel rod in your hand. And I want you to remember that the ground you are standing on has been giving water to human beings for 10,000 years without asking anyone's permission and without sending anyone a bill. The water is still down there. It is waiting for you the same way it waited for your great-grandfather and his great-grandfather before him. If this was useful to you, if it made you think differently about the bill that comes in the mail every month, then please subscribe to this channel and like this video so that the next person who is tired of paying for what falls out of the sky for free can find it too. Share it with a neighbor who just got quoted $14,000 for a new well. He needs to hear this before he signs the paper. And remember, the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.